who starts, who sits, and how to become the greatest of all time. This is the Fantasy GOAT.
Yo, 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 what's up, fantasy football fans? This is the Fantasy GOAT. That's Jason Feinberg. I am Mike Davis. Coming up on the Fantasy GOAT, Ian Ritchie of Full-Time Fantasy drops by to drop some knowledge on waiver wire pickups. Plus, Sam Argier stops by for the GOATCAST. And of course, we have GOAT lineup and a 2-minute drill. But first, we start with our good friend, Dr. Nithin Natwa. Dr. Nithin Natwa, good to see you, my friend. The injuries never stop, and neither do you. Let's kick off today with an update on rookie stud wide receiver Malik Nabers. What's the update on him and his concussion?
So with Malik Nabers, there is a 5-step protocol that you need to clear before returning. Initially, they hadn't seen him in practice, but that didn't necessarily mean that he wasn't progressing through the protocol. It's step 3 to step 4, where you actually see them return to the field. But as long as he's still having significant symptoms, they're not going to send him back out there. And the problem with that is that they released a statement saying that he's a long shot for this upcoming weekend. So that gives us a little bit more clarity on where he is in that 5-step protocol. So you need to have all the electrolytes rebalance in your brain. You need to not have headaches. You need to not have dizziness, and you need to be oriented. And it sounds like he might not be there yet. So I would project him being out this week. Almost all concussions do recover within 2 weeks, though. Despite the scary stories we hear, you do need to wait till they're fully recovered. But I would assume that he would be out there the following week.
All right, yeah. He's how good is he,
Oh,
Jason? Even better than Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about being in this guillotine league is we just drafted recently. I took Malik Nabers in the first round, so I'm devastated. But my next question involving another injury, get this. The first pick overall, I don't know, it was a little soon for me, but was Rashee Rice. And we saw what happened to him. Is there any chance that he returns this season, even for playoffs?
Yeah, so this requires a little bit more nuance because, as everyone knows, this is probably the longest period of time we haven't heard an update on a major knee injury that happened. I think it's been 5 days since they got the MRI results, and there's been radio silence. Initially, when we talked about it, hyperextension injuries almost always affect the PCL, which is the bigger ligament that we talked about, before the ACL. But all the news that we heard initially was that they were worried about the ACL. And then they got the MRI. People are talking about there being swelling and that possibly affecting the imaging. But I can tell you that swelling does not affect the accuracy of the MRI at all. It actually, in certain cases, can improve the accuracy of it just because it makes certain structures bigger and all that. But the swelling isn't affecting the MRI results. What I think is happening is I think someone might have misspoke about the ACL, and it was actually the PCL that was injured. And when that happens, you need to really focus on how much laxity or instability there is in the knee joint. And the testing on that is pretty accurate in the immediate phase, but after a couple hours, that swelling restricts the accuracy of the physical exam testing. Right. So assuming he has some sort of ligament tear, they're probably waiting for the swelling to subside to really gauge how unstable his knee is to decide whether or not they need to do surgery, because in some cases, not all cases, you do repair the PCL. So that's what I think they're waiting for the swelling to subside is so they can get an accurate read on how lax the knee is and whether or not he does need to get surgery. So I project that this isn't a short-term issue. Some people are saying he'll be back in a couple weeks. I don't think that's the case. I think this is more so of a 6 to 7 week timeline versus out for the season timeline.
Okay.
But,
all right. And real quickly, Doc, let's talk about Jonathan Taylor, injury-prone dude. What can you tell us about him and his ankle?
So Jonathan Taylor, he had that tightrope surgery a couple years ago on the same ankle after having a pretty severe high ankle sprain. And the good thing about that surgery actually is it stabilizes the ankle. So although it won't prevent another high ankle sprain, it does help reduce the severity of it. And in this situation, they said that he suffered a high ankle sprain. They called it the mild sort, which is kind of vague because mild could be anywhere from no time missed to a couple weeks out. In this situation, I definitely think he's out this upcoming weekend. I don't believe he's practiced yet this week. I know he didn't practice the past 2 days, but I'm not positive about today. With that being said, though, I do think he definitely misses this week, but I do think he's got a shot at coming back next week.
All right. Thank you, Doc. You're the best. Go follow @FantasyDocs on social media to keep up to date with all the latest fantasy injury news. All right, it's that time. Let's get into a little bit of this or that, Jason. So we're going to kick off this or that with two guys who are currently causing heart failure, even conniptions for fantasy managers like myself.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson or Trevor Lawrence. Who would you rather have, Jason? You can't even answer. You're already laughing.
Well, I guess Trevor Lawrence, because at least he's probably has a better chance of staying on the field. Of course, that could be negative points. So maybe it's better Anthony Richardson, because then I can just move on to whoever's on the waiver wire. But no, I guess I'd have to go Trevor Lawrence.
See, I'm going Anthony Richardson just for the sheer fact that he, dual threat. He at least, he might fall into the end zone with some of those, run options. He rushes a lot. So I think that's the determining factor for me.
It's too bad because Trevor Lawrence can run. We've seen him do it, but he just doesn't do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems in Jacksonville. All right, so next up, Ramondre Stevenson and that fumbling problem he has, or Devon Achane as Miami completely forgot how to score points and play on the offensive side of the ball.
So I'm going to go with Devon Achane still because I believe that Tua will come back. That will help open up the offense. And I also think he gets a few more catches, which can add up to points there alone. So I'd have to go with Achane.
Yeah, Mariah Janos last week, she was telling us, obviously they're going to stack the box because Tua's out. They can't throw the ball. So you would think Achane would have some problems, but still, if they can't throw the ball, they at least got to run it.
Yeah.
So I'm still going to go with Achane there. And I just think, we all remember Belichick, and now with their new coaching staff there in New England, if you fumble the ball, they punish you there. So Gerard Mayo is going to probably stick with that philosophy as well. All right, finally, this or that, Cincy's T. Higgins or Jacksonville's rookie wide receiver from LSU, Brian Thomas Jr.?
So I'm going to go with T. Higgins because I think with Evan Ingram coming back, I think that's going to take some of the targets away from Brian. So whereas T. Higgins is sort of on the upward trajectory, so I'll go with T.
Okay, you know what? We're disagreeing all shows so far, Jason.
Okay.
So Brian Thomas, I've had him on my bench because I'm just have a lot of deep wide receiver play, but he's finding the end zone.
Yeah.
He's producing. He looks better than Christian Kirk. Gabe Davis is nowhere to be found, my brother from another mother. So I'm just going to go with Brian Thomas and keep up with this disagreement.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Well, coming up, Mariah Janos, as I mentioned earlier from Beat the Odds, she's going to join us. She's ready to take us down, Jason. And when I say us, I mean me. That's after the break.
All right, it's time, Mike, for the 2-minute drill.
Yes, Mariah Janos from Beat the Odds is here to share the results from last week's GOAT lineup. Take it away, Mariah, and just rip us to shreds.
Oh, gladly. So as we head into week 5, we really are getting to the thick of it here. No longer can we use the excuse of it's early in the season, I don't know what to expect. No. While there's certainly time for teams and players to improve or decline, we're at a point where we need to accept the reality of where these teams and players are at. So let's go over the results from this past weekend. We'll start with you, Mike. You got quarterback Joe Burrow with 17 points, running back Travis Etienne with 7, wide receiver Amari Cooper 7.5. Tight end Sam Laporta 9.3 for a total of 40.8. Now, Jason, you've got quarterback Andy Dalton with 15.9, running back Najee Harris with 10.3. You cleaned up here with Nico Collins, 36.1. Tight end Dallas Goedert, 13.2 for a total of 75.5. A bounce back win for Jason this week. And going pound for pound, Jason, you dominated here. We don't have time to go through all of Mike's poor decisions in life and in this, but
100%.
We'll address what we can. And it starts with Travis Etienne. Considering Jacksonville is the lone winless team in the league, I'd refrain from touching any of their players at this point, but Mike seems to be attracted to those red flags. So last week, Etienne played.
He took a stranded puppy dog.
I told you it was going to get personal this week, Mike.
This is basically my love life.
No,
this has nothing to do with fantasy football. This is just my love life. Continue.
I get a front row seat to all of it when it comes to Mike Davis. So yes, last week Etienne played a season low 52% of snaps with 12 touches and 60 total yards. He's running back 29 in fantasy points per game, and he hasn't rushed for more than 68 yards nor eclipsed 90 total yards in any week. So why you thought he would put up the numbers, I don't know, against Cincinnati too. It's beyond me. But next up on the Mike Davis Road to Ruin, we've got Amari Cooper. What a disappointment. An 82-yard tutty negated by a penalty. That one's got to hurt. But then also the on-target pass that went right through his hands, resulting in an interception. It's like, Alexa, play Slipping Through My Fingers by ABBA. It's one of those moments. And Mike, I'm going to let you lick your wounds here for a second while I move on to Sir Jason. You're getting surgery, so like I don't want to be too mean.
Thank you.
And there's not much to critique. Nico Collins clearly solidified your win there, but I do want to take a look at Najee Harris because he's got fantasy owners and Pittsburgh fans ready to pull their hair out. Harris posted 19 yards on 13 carries.
Jeez.
That's 1.4 yards a carry, and according to Next Gen Stats, he finished with minus 32 rushing yards over expectation. Harris may not be the problem. It might be Arthur Smith's play calling and how he's being utilized, but that's also a reason to think twice before playing him. So, Jason, congrats on the win. Mike, there's always next week, but for both of you, Lashana Tova. You know?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Shana Tova to you. You know what? Shana Tova, it's the Jewish New Year, Jason.
Right.
You know what that means? It's a time to start fresh.
Yes.
Begin anew. Next year, we repent. Next week, we repent for Yom Kippur. But right now, we're just starting anew. So I'm going to take on that philosophy, and truly, I'm just a servant to God. I'm here to exist for God. So fantasy football, you know what? It's a new year. I'm really here just to serve God.
I'm looking forward to who you're going to choose next week and have to atone for.
But we'll see what
Yom
happens
Kippur.
there. And I'll certainly be fasting for that one. Mariah, you're the best. Thank you so much. Coming up, Ian Ritchie from Full Time Fantasy. He joins us for the waiver wire watch. That's after these words. All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. Well, Jason, let's break down the state of the waiver wire.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher with bye weeks. So here to help us out is Ian Ritchie of Full Time Fantasy, and the hot pickup, because everybody's trying to figure out Kansas City's backfield. But you know, with this guy, you know what you're going to get at least.
You know what you're going to get. We talked about this a few weeks ago with maybe Carson Steele having a week or two of volume, but the long-term play being Kareem Hunt, and that long-term play is now. He established himself this week. He had 14 carries, had a great game. We project him for 17 carries this week with a 100% chance at a touchdown.
Wow.
The real advantage he has is, and in Andy Reid's offense, very complicated. So him having an understanding in this offense, having experience in this offense, gives him a leg up over the other guys and really helps him out going forward until Pacheco hopefully can come back.
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Next up, you want us to go get Xavier Legette.
Xavier Legette's a guy a lot of people probably haven't heard of.
Yeah.
You know, he runs just under a 4.4. He's a first-round draft pick. You know, when they had Bryce Young at quarterback, he really wasn't feeding the ball to too many guys. He had Adam Thielen in front of him. You know, some changes have happened. Now you have Andy Dalton at quarterback. Adam Thielen is now hurt. Legette has inserted himself in the lineup. And Dalton recognized he's a threat. So he had 10 targets this last week, 6 catches. We think he's going to have 5 or 6 catches again this week. We think moving forward, he's definitely on an upward trajectory. He has Deontay Johnson on the other side, which gives him a little protection. So we think he's a great guy. As you get into bye weeks, that you should really look at that's going to get a lot of targets.
I picked him up in a few leagues, and he came through with a touchdown already.
That's right.
So that was good. All right, who's our last guy that we can pick up?
Well, our last guy is Justin Fields.
Okay.
And, you know, Justin Fields was my stash and cash player at the beginning of the season and the preseason. And I think Mike Tomlin's handled the situation and handled him incredibly well. He let him come in without any pressure of being the starting quarterback. He put that on Russell Wilson. Fortunately, Russell Wilson was injured, and it allowed Fields to come in. You know, when you have that dual threat quarterback and they have a poor game passing, that usually that rushing yards and that rushing opportunity for a touchdown can make up for it. Last week he had 300 yards passing with a touchdown, 57 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. On a weekly basis, without Najee Harris doing very well, he should pick up the slack on the rushing end. And Mike Tomlin has found a way for him to be successful throwing the ball to George Pickens quite a bit and using Freiermuth a little bit more.
It's 100% right. And listen, when he's hitting on both those things, through the air and on the ground, he's going to win you some weeks.
Yeah, okay, and real quick to end it, this wasn't part of your notes here, but if any of these 3 guys are still, I've seen them on the waiver wire, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, or Wan'Dale Robinson in a PPR. All of them, none of them, one of them, 2 of them?
Well, we gave Wan'Dale Robinson a few weeks ago to pick up. He's very target heavy. We liked him before Nabers was hurt.
Okay.
We like him twice as much now that Nabers is hurt.
Yeah.
He's an absolute steal if he's on your waiver wire in a PPR league. I think Trey Sermon is another person now that we think Jonathan Taylor is going to be down. To be honest, he's another guy that can step in and do really well in that offense. But Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs, as Love gets back to 100%, can be really effective for you. And it's a high-scoring offense. We saw that last week. They were down 28-0, and they came all the way back and made a run of it.
Yeah.
And Wicks and Doubs are going to, on the upswing for sure, going to have really good finishes.
100% with Christian Watson.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ian, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Now we got to go over to our dude, Sam Argier with GOATCAST.
And Mike, we are going international this weekend. London, big game on Sunday morning. And yeah, that green means it's going to be cool and wet. But there's a game back here in the States that's going to be really hot, and it's in a very surprising location. Look at GOATCAST right after the break.
All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. Now it's time for GOATCAST. Let's go over to Sam Argier. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Jason. Grab your tea and crumpets. We're going to London early Sunday morning for the start. And as you might imagine, it's going to be cool and wet in London for that game. Minnesota and New York going at it. Aaron Rodgers, of course, making that trip across the pond. Hottest game this week in a surprising location, San Francisco. We'll be close to 100 for that game. It's going to be very hot. We also have some shower chances for some of the games, but overall, we're still in early October, not getting too cold just yet. But let's take it game by game, highlighting those outdoor games. And it's an outdoor game in London, so the field could be a little wet along with that wind. Temperatures in the 60s. That's Fahrenheit, not Celsius, even though that's what they do across the pond. We'll see some showers in that forecast there. Let's head to the late morning, early afternoon games, depending on your time zone. Wettest game for the early slot will be Jacksonville at 77. A little bit cooler up toward New England and Miami at 65, but some really nice weather. Cincinnati, around the D.C. area, and also in Chicago, 70s and 80s there. But look at this heat up in the Bay Area, 97 degrees during the game. Seattle and also Denver both hosting this weekend. Weather looks good for those games, a nice weather for the Mile High City. In the upper 70s. Then a chance for a few showers for the Sunday night game in Pittsburgh. That should be a good one against Dallas. Then the Monday night game, no weather worries there. Light wind, clear skies, Kansas City and New Orleans at 63 degrees. But looking at that temperature, of course, in Santa Clara in the Bay Area, I think some of those players are wishing Candlestick was still around.
Yeah, with the breeze.
With the breeze
Right.
on the,
It's crazy.
the bay.
That's the hottest game, but that's such a good call on outdoor because I usually try to stay away from the international games anyway with my players because it's just such a toss-up.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's also outside and could be wet, I mean, outdoor saying that's tricky.
Be slipping all over.
Yeah, I mean, it's that classic, you know, if you've been up to Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, it's like the low clouds. It's not going to be like a super heavy rain, but it's kind of that misty, but still, you know, makes the ball wet, can certainly impact the passing, maybe even a field goal attempt or two if they get that wind swirling in the bowl. You never know.
Plus, I mean, we all remember first game this season in Brazil. You just don't field conditions.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's going to because it's just a different situation. So you don't know what the field's going to be like.
Yeah, no, for sure. And but I just can't get over the fact that you try to escape to California, especially San Francisco, for some coolness.
Right.
And yeah,
That's where, you know, was it Mark Twain said the coldest winter was the summer in San Francisco?
Yeah.
I think that was Mark Twain. Somebody said that.
I think so.
He had a lot of good sayings, that guy. All right, Sam, you're the best. Thank you
Thank you,
so
gentlemen.
much. We'll be right back after a short break.
This is the Fantasy GOAT.
Well, it's the best time of the show. It's GOAT lineup time. But first, here's how GOAT lineup works. Each week, Jason and I go head-to-head, face-off, head-to-head in standard style scoring. We each select one QB, one RB, and one wide receiver, and lastly, one tight end. But here's the catch. There's a survival style element to this, as we can only select a player one time. So currently, Jason, you lead me 3-1, and I'm going to have you kick us off so we can take a look at your lineup.
Okay, so being up 3-1, I'm taking some chances here, and then also giving you a chance to catch up. So yeah, I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. He hasn't done a whole lot, but he has a decent matchup, so I kind of like him. This is a tough week in general for quarterbacks, so now's a good time if I can only play one quarterback one time a season. Maybe now I go with the rookie. Chase Brown with Cincinnati has really come alive. He's still not getting the same snap count as Zach Moss, but he's getting there and he's finding the end zone. Christian Kirk is finally starting to get the ball and a good matchup against Indianapolis. Of course, he's on Jacksonville. And then just, really just just throw whatever tight end at any point. Really nobody is doing anything. So Hunter Henry will be mine up against, a pretty decent matchup there for New England.
It's fascinating because Hunter Henry's that dude. It's like he either finds the end zone and has a pretty solid week or he does absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
There's no in between.
Yeah.
All right, so good stuff there. I really need to get a win here. So here's my lineup for week 3. I'm going to start with Geno Smith. I really like the matchup there for him with Seattle. He looks good. I like things that are going on in Seattle. DK looks good. Jackson Smith and Jigba. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Geno. And I didn't love a lot of the matchups for the top-tier QBs this week, a lot of tough matchups. So I thought I'd roll with Geno. Next, Jordan Mason. I want to get on this train before McCaffrey comes back. He's looked solid. He's consistently ranked in the top 5 of running backs. So Jordan Mason, in our GOATCAST, Sam just said it's going to be the hottest game of the week. So we'll see how that impacts him. But, that'll be interesting. And then Brian Thomas, he keeps finding the end zone and having a good job. I like that matchup for him against Indianapolis, so I'm going to roll with him instead of
So we're going
Christian
head-to-head
Kirk.
with the Jacksonville.
Exactly. You got Kirk, I got
receivers.
Thomas. And then, listen, we all love what Jaden Daniels is accomplishing right now in D.C. Zach Ertz is still playing. Like you said, it's tough to find a good, solid tight end, so I figured let me roll with Zach Ertz. So that's what we're doing this week, Jason. You're up 3-1. I need a win here.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely giving you the chance because I'm not real happy with any of my players. But, yeah, I got to use somebody. I have to use most of these players at some point anyway.
Exactly. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.